Interview with the Universe with Elizabeth Ann Hill and Glenna Dietrich, Part 2, Education, Science, Medicine, Business, and the Economy.
We welcome you on your return to this space, this creation that involves all of us and our intentions and our vibrations that create this space that's opening in connection for this information to be brought to you and through us. And we are very pleased and excited to continue on with this conversation. And so we open to your questions.
We welcome you as well, and we're very grateful for your participation. We've established that our children have been coming into the world physically, mentally, and spiritually different than they had before. And so, can you comment on some of the best ways to educate these children?
We would say that in the past, the formalized education process was more about programming and training than it was about allowing imagination and intuition to take the lead. As the energies shift, and as you are more open to the shifting of energies, we would say that it is more conducive to allowing children and adults alike to use their own imagination and their own intuitive processes in terms of training themselves, such as the ability to reawaken all of those things which are important in this world. We would say that at this time, more and more individuals, children included, are more aware of the life force that is within every being on this planet, seen and unseen, and for the need for reconnection, for the need for acknowledging all of these beings and their light and their existence, and also to attempt connections with these beings. We say that truly the green movement that is currently in vogue in your country is an example of this. It is a heightened awareness that there is connection between yourselves and the planet and your ecological systems, and that your survival is contingent upon you recognizing this connection. It is a powerful connection between yourselves in this other realm or other realms. And as you begin to acknowledge, your awareness then deepens. So the acknowledgement actually opens a doorway for those beings to attempt contact with you. And as you open further, this connection and contact will be made in a more conscious manner, and there will be dialogues, and there will be actual physical sightings, and there will be those awarenesses that will come of an indication that individuals, humans, are closer to understanding that everything is all that is and that you are all connected. So the awareness of consequences of actions and thoughts and words will become higher, and you will also shift your belief systems. There will no longer be a need for such stringent control measures amongst you, as you will begin to understand more clearly the connection between you. And so we would say that the older education systems, where children were sat in rows and made to memorize things by rote, and that these situations which are filled with facts, and though these facts may be interesting, these will not keep the attention of the children who are coming at a higher vibration and frequency. However, we would also point out to you that this system has not worked for a long period of time for the advancements that have been made in the last period of time. We would say the last decade or two have been mostly made by individuals who are thinking outside of the box, or recognizing that their intuition and their imagination should take the lead, and that their intellect should come in line with the imagination. And so we would say that it is important to encourage art. It is important to encourage music. It is important for the emphasis to be taken away from things like contact sports, which any form of these in a competition manner is a very mild form of violence, and so is not conducive to leadership training for the young people of this day. And it also encourages the sense of that there is a winner and a loser, which is polarity. And these young folks that are coming in now are not familiar with this concept and cannot be familiar with this concept. And so it is important to notice what is working with individuals, young teachers, and some older teachers as well, and some administrators who are noticing that the old techniques are not working and are shifting their own focus and their attention onto things that are working, and to open the doorway for these new techniques and ideas to come through, not allowing the old establishment to stay intact.
I see. That's some very powerful information about education. Some have suggested that as children get older, that there would be more independent study, maybe not even having high school. Would you agree with that?
We would say that it would be important for young people to have social contact, but this would not be necessarily stabilized within the structure of what you consider to be high school.
Going forward, would there be a more independent type of study, maybe doing projects and vocational knowledge? Would that be something that you would be talking about?
To encourage young people to do independent study on their own, and more study in an experiential manner, as is truly the fact, even at this time, that over half of your population learns more quickly and more efficiently through the use of experiential techniques rather than the use of by rote learning. And so we say that to encourage those who can access that experiential side of themselves would be very applicable and very appropriate.
I think we've covered everything that we need to cover on education. You gave us a really wonderful, clear picture of where that's going. So I'd like to move on to science and medicine, if you will.
Certainly.
You have said in previous conversations that the human body is mutating. Will you expand further on this concept?
The mutation that we see happening within your body is twofold. And we would say that the physical body is mutating in order to expand the electromagnetic currency to a higher frequency at all levels, which would be all molecular levels. And so we would say that this sort of tune-up would be, an example would be if you would take an automobile which has a 6-cylinder engine in it and modify it to be able to use an 8-cylinder or a 12-cylinder or even a 24-cylinder engine in it. And so all the applicable gears and mechanisms would have to be modified accordingly. And so the physical modification then is going on in order to handle the new frequencies, which are waking up portions of your DNA which have not been usable up to this point. By waking up the DNA, there are many aspects to personalities, many abilities that will be used now that have not been accessed in the past. Among those will be certain types of what you would consider ESP, certain types of telepathy. There will no longer be the use of or the need for physical language. There will be the need for understanding more on how sound waves move and how they affect the body. There will be actually an ability to communicate without the use of wires or even speech, among other things.
What types of physical manifestations are we seeing due to these mutations?
Results of the electromagnetic energies moving through the circuits and needing more modifications. And so humans are experiencing a variety of symptoms which range from headaches to moderate illnesses, sinus problems, many digestive issues as foods are no longer needed, nor can they be digested in the new shifting bodies, old styles of eating, old lifestyles that are surrounding the eating of chemically laced foods and some animal foods are no longer digestible by certain bodies. And as your frequency rises, there will be less and less need for these lower energy foods and less tolerance for them as well. We also see that humans are finding it useful to not store as much mundane information in their minds, in their brains. And yet, as the DNA opens up, the strands are opened and activated, there will be a possibility to store much more information. And so there must be decisions made as to what kinds of information you would like to store, what kinds of information are useful to you and are interesting to you. And so we would also say that with the digestive problems, so-called problems, you will see many individuals shifting and changing their diets, more individuals going to becoming fruitarians and even aquatarians. And as this shift is enhanced, there will be levels that each body would fall into. Some would be more able to access the density of the lower vibrating foods, and other bodies will not be capable of this at all. And so we would say to be open to change and be willing to accept these new changes, that if you find that a certain food is upsetting to your body or a certain lifestyle does not support you, if there are things that you find irritating or frustrating, those are things that must be changed or allowed to flow. There are many electromagnetic things that affect your ability to tolerate certain sounds, certain situations, and also to honor the fact that the frustration and intolerance can be an indication that you are continuing to force yourself into situations and lifestyles that do not suit you, that are not truly enforcing or exhibiting your truth about who you are.
In talking about science and medicine, I think it's very interesting that you've mentioned living situation and that type of thing. So going forward, will there be more of a mind, body, spirit connection emphasis in medicine?
Yes, There has been a difficulty with the creation of a separation between mind, body, and spirit. And as you proceed through this shift, you will become more and more aware of the fact that these are interwoven and not able to be separated. One area cannot be treated separately. All areas must be brought into focus in order to bring balance.
Is it appropriate or is it necessary for human beings to become vegetarians?
There are some individuals who will be healthier as vegetarians. However, we say to you that as consciousness rises and you begin to notice that you are connected with animals and that they are as well a life force and should be honored as such, that there will be a certain respect for their life, for their treatment, the way they are forced to exit, also the way that the meat is handled, actually the thoughts and the feelings of the people who are performing the duties of caring for these animals, feeding these animals, cleaning up after these animals, and also butchering these animals, that their exit is every bit as important to the basic nutrition and energy that comes from this meat as is what they eat, what they've been fed. And so, as well, their own interwoven mind, body, spirit being must be brought to a level of honoring and respect as well. In that way, then, those who choose to ingest meat will be ingesting the perfect form instead of something that has been modified.
I've heard before that meat, when you ingest it, is very dense, and so that can affect your ability to connect with your own intuition and to higher entities. Is that true?
It is true in terms of, first of all, your own body, your own metabolism, and how your digestive system is set up, and also how well it's working. But the major part of that equation is about the energies of the meat itself, how the animal was treated, what the animal was fed, how it was respected or not respected, and again, about how it was killed. And so the energy and the emotion of the caretakers go into the meat, and because it is a dense material, it absorbs and holds these energies within it. And so as your consciousness rises, there will be that level of understanding of this and that deep level of respect.
Are there particular forms of exercise that are more beneficial than others going forward?
Again, that depends on the individual bodies, and as well as your consciousness rises and you have more of an ability to connect with your heart, to understand what's appropriate for you in all areas in your life, you will be more able to access that type of exercise that is the best for your particular body type. Those people who have a higher metabolism, a higher rate of life force moving through their bodies, would find that aerobic exercise is more complementary to their bodies. However, there will be those who have a denser form, and those individuals who have a lower metabolism will find that movements such as yoga or Tai Chi or Qigong would be more appropriate for their own bodies.
Moving on to the subject of disease and illness, what would you say the cause of disease and illness is?
Disease and illness is always a disharmony in the body caused by thoughts, inappropriate thoughts, and especially incorrect thoughts. If there are beliefs and thoughts that are held within the body, whether they be incorporated with learning of this body, or whether they be genetic or heredity passed on through the DNA, it does not matter. these beliefs then generate thoughts, and the thoughts then are what begin the disharmonic process within the body. The cells react to this by becoming more chaotic and not being aware of their duties, as we've spoken to you before about kidney cells doing the work of kidneys and lung cells doing the work of lungs. Many times the cells within a certain organ or a certain part in the body will absorb a thought or a feeling and hold it within itself, causing dysfunction within that organ. And as the organ dysfunctions, that particular organ itself or that part of the body may begin to degenerate, and either that organ or part of the body could access a disharmony that would create disease, or it may radiate out into a different part in the body, creating disharmony and disease.
And so, if someone is faced with an illness or disease, would they be able to rid themselves of the disease by changing their thoughts and or having positive affirmations?
We would say that there are many factors in this, but to answer your question, yes.
If someone had decided before they came into physical body that they wanted to experience an illness, then if they were to use positive affirmations and thoughts, would they be able to cure or rid themselves of the disease, or would they continue to have the disease because it's an experience they wanted to go through?
Both. They may rid themselves of the disease if they have finished with that process and are truly clear in their subconsciousness or within the higher self connection that they have learned what they wanted and needed from this disease. Also, there are many emotional counterparts to illness or disease. Those come into focus and into play. And also, many individuals may choose to use this disease as an exit point.
If someone is faced with an illness, what is the best way to handle it?
We would say that to understand that an illness is not an attack on your body, so that the defense mechanism does not come forward. It's energetically is a response that is quite useless. And we would say that to actually bless that disease or that disharmony and allow yourself to understand and to acknowledge and to accept that all things that are have come to be mainly because of the choices that you have made in the past. And so you are both responsible and the creator of that situation. And once you access that level of responsibility where you're very clear in understanding this, it gives you the power to change it.
And so it's important to understand then that it's not about blame or guilt, it's simply about responsibility.
This is correct.
There's been some recent scientific studies that show that our thoughts actually affect and change our genes and our DNA in our bodies. Is this the case?
Yes, this is correct.
If a doctor gives a patient a diagnosis, can that be detrimental to the disease process in the human being?
If the individual is not at the level of accepting full responsibility of co-creating this disease, yes.
What is the best way for human beings to optimize their health?
We would say to understand the body-mind-spirit connection is very important, and to understand that the body is the vessel or the vehicle for the spirit and must be honored as a sacred space and treated as such. We would say that self-love is of ultimate importance, which then, of course, includes loving treatment of the body and taking care, noticing, paying attention to the body's needs, to the body's desires, and also Laughter is very important. Having fun in life and affording oneself pleasure, however that might come about through work, through relationships, but mostly through self-love.
Is that where the inner child would come in?
Yes.
Laughing and playing.
We would say that if you would experience a 3-year-old and watch and understand the allowing of emotions to move through the body that a small child will do, where one moment there are tears and the next moment there's laughter, there's great joy and great awe, great pleasure in life. Every moment is exciting to them. They wake up in the morning excited to start playing. If all adults on this planet would wake up in the morning excited to start playing, all of your maladies would disappear.
There is an ongoing debate about what is the best way to provide health care and how it should be done. Is there a society that has a healthcare system that we could emulate?
On your planet?
Yes.
No.
What are the problems as you see it in the way that we provide health care?
The first and foremost problem is the inability to accept responsibility for the self. The lack of self-love, the lack of self-care. We say that to put the responsibility for health care on the outside of yourself is inappropriate and does not work well. We would say that accepting the responsibility for your own care, seeking out a healer that resonates with you, who understands that they co-create with you, giving you ideas and support, is actually the way to bring about healing.
Many have said that there's a resurgence in the medical community of the understanding that spirituality plays a big part in a person's overall well-being. Would you agree with that?
We would say that the use of prayer is very, very powerful, if you would put that in the category of spirituality, but also the recognition of your own divinity and your own level of self-love. A love of the body is very, very important. Also the accepting of responsibility for self, taking charge of one's own life.
So moving from a reactive to a proactive stance on health care.
This is excellent.
I've been a volunteer for hospice, and I believe that hospice is cutting-edge medicine because they focus on removing the fear of death, and they also recognize that every stage of life is important, including the end stage. Would you comment on this?
We would say that the ability to provide loving care for individuals who are at their exit point is very possibly one of the most life-changing events for an individual. And we would say that, yes, indeed, there are very many cutting edge, as you put it, technologies available. Also, we would say that comfort and care is the ultimate in terms of allowing people a peaceful transition.
In our traditional medical communities, it seems that there's a rather negative view of death. Do you think this will change going forward?
We see more and more individuals with an acceptance of lifetime after lifetime here on this planet, as well as an ability to entertain the thought of spirit inhabiting the body. And we say that this will bring about change in that area. There is that ancient teaching about the exit point and also the worlds beyond that is causing a resurgence of hope and belief in humans.
Also, it seems that a person who was involved in caring for a person at the end stage of life would also benefit. Is that not true?
This is also true.
Is there such a thing as a near-death experience?
As a human, you have many near-death experiences. there are many possible exit points, and as well, there are times in dream stages that you exit to the degree where your spirit may choose not to return to the body. And so, yes, this is true.
In some cases, people have some very vivid recall of these near-death experiences. Is there anything different there than the ones that maybe we don't know about that have taken place?
We would say that the level of consciousness is raised in a person who has that vivid recall or glimmers of that. Those individuals come back to this realm with a higher level of remembrance of who it is that they are.
What can others learn from these experiences?
They also would have a higher likelihood of opportunities for these remembrances themselves through reading about or hearing about other individuals' so-called afterlife experiences.
It would help just to read about or hear about it.
Yes, certainly.
I have another question about healing. Can a human being heal another human being?
We would say that healing comes from within, but that there are certain energetics present that starts with love and care, and also there are electromagnetic elements that are helpful in supporting the physical body during the healing process. Ultimately, health and healing comes from within each individual.
A person who has healing abilities like Reiki or some other methodology would just be assisting the person to access that place within themselves that can heal?
Yes, certainly.
I want to move on to science. Science is going through a dramatic transformation that has been going on for quite a while. Would you describe what's happening within science?
We would say that there is awareness now of other realms that are coming upon so-called scientists, those researchers, and we would say that the awareness is more about the connectedness of spirit, and also that all matter is created by thought. And so we would say that within these awarenesses come about remembering as well of the scientists themselves understanding more about their mind-body-spirit connection, and also a respect of the life force in other beings, including other humans. This is helpful in the raising of consciousness and of awareness, and also there is a letting go of the need to physically prove the understandings that come upon them.
And with the understanding of quantum physics that there is an energetic force or life force that moves throughout all things, seems to be something that has changed the way people view the world. Would you agree with that?
Yes, it is a raising of consciousness.
And many have said that science and spirituality are merging. Would you agree with this?
It has always been so, but the understanding and awareness is now coming about.
Why are there so many in the scientific and medical communities who have a difficult time with these ideas?
There is a certain training that interferes with that and mindset, but basically it is about their fear of change, changing their thoughts, changing their beliefs, and also the change that would come about within their jobs and their security and their financial positions if accepting these new changes means that they no longer have a position.
Before we move from the subject of science and medicine, is there anything you wanted to add, things that we might want to focus on going forward in regards to health and medicine and science?
Only to reiterate that it is about the acknowledgement of responsibility for self that creates the place for harmony within the physical body.
I'd like to move on to the subject of the economy, business, and employment. That's okay with you?
Certainly.
In previous conversations, you said that many of us have come into the world at this time and have agreed to go through this transformation, and as this would happen, we would have some struggles with money. Can you explain what's happening with money?
We would say that money symbolizes energy, and that there are many inappropriate emotional connections that individuals have made to this symbol. We would say that the emotional connections involve control, they involve guilt, they involve shame, they involve limitation. And as you can see, this list is all things that do not resonate well in the body. And so, with the lack of money or limited money, individuals are allowing themselves to release all of those above mentioned elements and bring their bodies more fully into alignment with the proper resonance of what you consider to be work in the world, which is a purposeful using of one's energy and one's ability and one's time. As well, after the shift in money takes place, there will be a shift in time. And so all of these things then will begin to make more sense to you as the shift in time is allowed to come in.
Right now, money is the medium of exchange, and so what would you say to people who are faced with what appears to be a shortage of money?
We would say that moving into that space of limitlessness, of becoming the abundance that you would like to see in your life, and also to become resourceful to the greatest degree that is possible, to find happiness in small things, in the beauty of life, and to understand that emotional attachment to material things is inappropriate, in that material things can be formulated and they can be constructed, but they can also be destroyed. And so happiness needs to come from within the self.
It appears that the way people are making a living is changing. Would you describe what's taking place?
More and more individuals are raising their frequencies. They are beginning to understand that they have been programmed. They're beginning to understand that the training in the old ways has been about their own personal sacrifice. It has been about suffering and pain, and it has been about doing what others expect from you and being controlled by others. These things are low density belief systems, and they are beginning to fall away.
And so more and more people are going to be following their passion versus what other people want from them.
As their frequency rises, the limitations fall away. And so people see a clearer path in terms of following what it is that they wish and bringing more and more pleasure into their lives, thereby raising their frequency even higher. And as this happens, you will see more people willing and able to choose what it is that they do in terms of work and in terms of the use of their time.
You've spoken to me recently about the idea of projecting into the future and worry, and would you expand a little bit more on that?
We would say that to stay in the moment is to be in your power. To worry about what may come or what is to come, or to worry about what has been done in the past, is a useless waste of your energy, in that you have no power. These things are illusions, and that the perfect power lies in staying in this moment and dealing with things within this moment. So in the limitation that is coming about, the illusion of a limitation that is coming about, to stay in this moment and recognize and remind yourself of what you have now and not to be projecting into the future and worrying about what you may or may not have in the future.
As we become a more spiritual society, how will the focus of business change?
We would say that business is and will be becoming more community organized, that there will be less ability and desire to go beyond the confines of one's own community to find food and to bring in education, that those in charge will be more connected with and more accountable to those individuals within the community itself. There will be smaller forms of government, smaller forms of education, smaller forms of commerce in general, and they will be more localized and more controlled by those who are the consumers. And so it will still be a need driven basis, but it will be driven more on the needs of the few within that community. And so we say that integrity and honor and respect will be of utmost importance in the conducting of business, and there will be no longer a focus on profit margins, but more on quality and deliverability of products and the integrity of products.
How will our ideas about success change as we move into a more spiritual society?
As your consciousness changes and your frequency becomes higher, your own abilities to view yourselves in a wider perspective will become more prevalent.
And so, what used to be considered success in the form of a house or a car or a good job, those ideas will change.
They will change accordingly to the level of consciousness that you hold, and also according to what it is that you prize in your life, what it is that brings you passion and pleasure.
Are there ways that our technology, new technology, can help us become a more spiritual society?
These technologies are already in use in what you would call the internet. But the internet is an introduction to a way to communicate telepathically. And so as people become more user friendly, so to speak, there will be more of an ability to communicate on a telepathic level, a nonverbal level. As we do this, individuals will become more transparent. There will be no ability to hide thoughts. And so those individuals with lower vibrating thoughts will be noticed and helped through the support of community and through a belief system that all beings are loving, all beings are acting to the best of their ability at all times. And so we would say that the raising of this frequency then would be of a spiritual nature.